Good morning. How are you? Welcome to Smart Means Business. You are joined by Godwin Batuma this morning, as well as Enid.
Good morning. Smart Means Business. It's yet another beautiful morning for us to drive your business.
Yes, we have a lot that we're going to discuss this morning. I hope you all had a lovely, lovely night. It's coming to the end of the week. Tomorrow is Friday, but they're very interesting topics, especially now that we're getting into the end of the year. A lot of people are taking stock of what the financial year has looked like for them on a domestic level, as well as on an economic level.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that we're going to analyze. We're going to look at economic trends in Africa, especially in Uganda, and just see how that trajectory has changed, what the analysis of the economic trends has been, and how it's impacted our economy greatly. And that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, how would you, looking from the outside looking in, or from the inside looking in, how would you look at how the trends that have, the economic trends that have happened so far? What are your opinions on this?
When it comes to our country, Uganda,
Yes.
I feel like we're evolving. We're growing every day, right from the GDP, then looking at the inflation rates. Lately, inflation rates have been a bit higher, like the prices have been up there, but then at least there is some great improvement and change.
It's interesting, right? And we're seeing, according to the analysis here, we see that a growth slowdown is definitely what has happened this year. We see that sub-Saharan Africa's economic growth is expected to slow to 2.5% in this 2023, which has already gone down by that percentage, and then down from 3.6%, which was in 2022. So we see this slowdown is attributed to several factors. First of all, increased fragility and conflict. There's constant conflict in the economy, right? There's constant wars that are happening. There's constant conflict, especially from a political landscape, that has affected the economy. And then climate shocks. This is, I think, something we have talked about for a very, very long time, is that climate change and how this has impacted our economy. The conversation around climate change. Especially now in Uganda, we are heavily dependent and reliant on agriculture as our bread and butter. And we've seen that with these constant rains that are happening. I wonder how that affects our agricultural system and how that affects our economy, how that affects the infrastructure. I mean, just think about, look at the roads. Just moving from here to the village, I'm sure it's very difficult for a lot of these farmers and business owners to be able to transport their goods. It's becoming much slower. So I don't know, it's something that's really, really
it's disturbing, but then at least at the end of the day, we need to look at diversification. Because if at all we are affected in the agriculture sector, and it's a sector where we are mainly based on, I think over 70% of our population is into agriculture. So what we need to do is we need to look at other ventures, other sectors like technology, maybe tourism, and you can see that there is a very good percentage growth in the tourism industry.
I think that's one of the biggest economic analyses is where we're basically more internet savvy now. A lot of things are being put online, we're AI systems. So people are they're changing the way in which they do business. The way in which we're doing business in 2020, 2019, 2020 has completely changed, especially since COVID. People are now realizing, listen, we can start to operate online. We can start to do a lot of these things online without having to be physically there. We can start to sell our goods online because, you know, with these rains that have happened, with the flooding, it's harder for people to get to work in some places. Imagine people working downtown, people who work by the roadside. It's damaging their business every morning because the rains are unpredictable and they are consistent. So with these monsoon changes in the weather, that's where we have to almost diversify, as you mentioned, and start investing in the carbon emissions, carbon credits, as we see Kenya is doing, where Haruto is definitely spearheading that conversation with the carbon credits, right? And we see another impact of this is the global economic uncertainty. So we see the slowdown in major trading partners combined with the war in Ukraine is impacting exports and investments in Africa. So the war that happened in Ukraine greatly affected the world. It didn't just affect them. That's what happens, isn't it? Right? Every time there's something that's happening in other places, like what's happening in Palestine, that affects the whole world in a very significant way because many of these countries are big players when it comes to things like oil, things like foodstuffs. These are big players.
Do you remember when the war in Ukraine happened? Then we got the wheat prices up there. I think till now, they're still up there.
The wheat prices have definitely increased, right? So we have countries like Egypt where the wheat, where you thought they were exporting wheat, now for them it's also tough. They have to import a bit of that wheat. It's quite expensive. And then we're seeing, of course, as you mentioned, one of the trends is diversification, right? So many economies are moving away from relying solely on natural resources and are diversifying into sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism. As we see, we're now starting to bolster our tourist sector. I don't know if Nyeganyege is happening happening or it's happened already?
It happened
It happened already.
Yes.
I did attend this year. My God, I need to catch up.
Yes, it
But
happened.
of course, some of these avenues like that, there was a time when they almost didn't want Nege to happen because they were saying it was encouraging promiscuity, it was encouraging bad behavior. But this is one of the avenues in which we are starting to bolster tourism in our economy, right? Putting ourselves out there, being able to use other avenues. In the tourism sector, we also need to diversify, right? As opposed to things like just going to gorilla watch or mountain climbing. People are now doing bird watching, right? People are going to lakes or going to national parks. There's a lot more diversification.
It's shifting from the other traditional way to now something more good and modern.
We're exploring more. We have more hotels that are coming on board, right? So we're really trying to diversify. And then, of course, we're seeing youth entrepreneurship. This is something that I find quite interesting, especially having attended the Oma Showground. I keep talking about it all the time. It was such an important milestone to be able to see so many young entrepreneurs. As mentioned, the employment sector in Uganda, the unemployment rate is extremely high. So we're finding a lot of the younger people coming out of campus, having done social work, having done hospitality, engineering. They're now diversifying. I know friends who studied to be lawyers who are not lawyers anymore. As soon as they went into what's this place where you go right after campus, then there's that transitional space you go to. Many of them quit and said, listen, we're not doing this. There's no money here. We need to figure out ways. They're now doing businesses. Many of them are farmers. Shout out to the Darlenes of this world.
Wow.
But people have diversified from the traditional way in which they were studying and then waiting for a job and saying, you know what, let me start to become my own job creator. What do you say on that?
And that's a good take. That's a good move. Because, you know, with our education system, like yesterday we discussed, we talked about education being key, but then with the system we're in, but then you could see that we are more of theoretical than practical. So literally, there are more job seekers than the job creators.
Right. And people are starting to really think outside the box. They're thinking, listen, I don't just have to do what I studied, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're an economist. You didn't study to be a journalist. I have many friends who are doctors, engineers, are now making soap, are now doing crocheting.
Yes.
They're designing dresses, right? They're completely doing things that are completely out of the norm. So by diversifying their portfolios, that is something that has changed, especially with the advent of AI systems. We're going to find a lot of people upskilling. We're going to find a lot of people studying IT more. I know we have our Andrew Barigi as well.
Yeah.
People who are studying IT, diversifying and understanding that, listen, we cannot just be one way, we can be many things.
Many things.
And just looking at the overall trend in Africa, we see here that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, and Nigeria's growth is crucial for the continent. The Nigerian economy is expected to grow by 2.9%, as it is already. And then we have Ethiopia coming in second as one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. And then we have number 3 is Kenya. We've seen all the moves and the strides that Kenya has been making, from spearheading the climate summit to carbon credits, right, to renewable energy, to bring in the electric cars, the electric bikes. They're really diversifying. So we see that the economy has grown exponentially, expected to grow by 5.5%, right, by the end of this year. And then, of course, continued investments are happening, as we mentioned already, taken on a lot of funding to be able to look at the climate sector. And then we see South Africa comes in after Kenya, with South Africa's economy is expected to grow by 1.9%. So we see here Kenya is doing quite well at representing for East Africa. But briefly, before we move on to the next thing, I would love to talk about just the idea of investment, foreign investment. We talked about it this week, how we're constantly taking out loans, or we have a lot of foreign investment in the economy. How do you think it's affecting our country? The fact that we take on so much loan. We talk about loans, right? How to avoid loans this week. Now, as a country, we've also taken on a lot of loans. We're also taking on a lot of foreign investment that is coming in. It can be a very good thing for the economy, but conversely, it
in
can
the
also
long
be
run,
a bad thing.
yes.
What do you think could be the issue there?
When it comes to foreign investment, you'd look at how these guys, at the end of the day, influence our policies and how policies are made, because they want the policies to now favor them, to be in favor of them, not now the locals. And now, since we need them, the government ends up, you know, putting more consideration into their requests or their demands or interests.
Things like tax holidays, right? Being tax, whatever, tax
They're
exemptions.
given exemptions
for some
of
these
20 years.
companies. Yes.
How?
which is sad, and you find a lot of the domestic entrepreneurs are not getting such kind of benefits, right? So we look at someone else with foreign skin and think, yes, let's give them more because they're bringing more money, but it can also be very detrimental because some of them actually exploit our workers.
Yes, they do.
Exploit our resources. I mean, we've had all these stories about a particular kind of group of people that working for them is very difficult. I won't mention names, but a lot of these people exploit the workers because they're thinking, why should I pay you minimum wage? Why should I pay you according to the standard, right? Because they come from places where there's minimum wage, and they come and see the policies that are very flexible here in Uganda. And they're thinking, why should I pay this person 500K?
Exactly.
I'm going to pay you 200K. And it doesn't matter how qualified you are. And that's very unfair for the workers here because you don't have that minimum wage.
And not only even the workers, it also comes down to the consumers. The products we consume that are produced by them, at the end of the day, they also charge us highly for their products in our own country. And that's not
in
fair.
our own country, right?
Yes.
And we find that we don't have enough policies in place to protect us. We don't have enough of these labor laws to be able to affirm these rules, right? I know there was recently something that happened. A lot of Ugandans are flying over to Dubai to look for work. Ugandans are flying outside of the country to look for work because the conditions aren't favorable here, because they're thinking I might as well fly over. But also you find cases of people in Dubai are not treated well. So we also have to have international labor laws where people are protected. Our people who are flying abroad to look for work have to be protected. And that's another thing, right? And we'll also see there's environmental damage because foreign companies may engage in practices that damage the environment, such as deforestation or pollution.
Exactly.
And because of these lax laws that we have, we allow them to be able to do that as they set up their industry.
Because they know they're investors. At the end of the day, and by the way, that's not a good thing because at the end of the day, you're putting up an industry. Yes, it's good. You're trying to, reduce on the unemployment rates because you'll employ people. That's okay. At the end of the day, the area will develop. But then, these industries aren't going to provide the same advantages or the same uses as the forest was.
It is, because look at the big factories that they're placing in this forest, and there's no environmental laws or environmental policies that are being affirmed or put in place to tell them, listen, you can't take that much away, or if you, or even if you're cutting these trees, are you planting? What measures are you actually putting in place for afforestation?
Exactly.
We don't have that in place, right? So it's by thinking, so in my country, I'm giving you guys investment, I'm building your economy. Why should I care about the environment? And that's where the conversation on climate change will start to affect the people, because guess what? The oil prices become higher, it becomes tougher. All these things we're struggling with, and we're looking for renewable energy. But how are we supposed to do that when our environment is struggling?
Yes,
because it affects us, right? And then lastly, of course, we have how foreign investment has definitely affected us is unequal distribution of benefits. So we see the benefits of foreign investment may not be evenly distributed, and some communities may be left behind. And one of the things I've noticed with the foreign investors is many of them might take on their own. So they come with a lot of their own people here, and they don't really take on a lot of the workers here. So it's some people that are definitely
a few that are benefiting.
Only a few benefiting. So it's almost like they're doing it for themselves as opposed to coming to invest for the economy, right? I mean, I commend people like, of course, cafe Javas that are doing an amazing job. These are all foreigners, right, that come to this place, but at least there's an active contribution to the economy that they have, and a lot of people can't say that, right? We see many of them coming and which is very risky. What are your thoughts on that?
And it's a common thing with most of the companies that are coming in, the foreign companies, because they just come to do business here and they leave. Because at the end of the day, like it or not, the profits are repatriated to their home countries or wherever, and we are left out. And yet the labor is provided by us, the work, the efforts are done by, everything is put in by us. But then we blame
the laws that are not being enforced, right? Because I see many times these cases here, workers will come and take people who don't have paperwork, who don't have documentation. But that same shop that was closed because of the lack of paperwork, the next day is open, and you're thinking, I'm sure you didn't get all the paperwork in one day. So someone has been bribed. Bribery has become such a trend where they bribe these different governmental organizations. I'm thinking, like, as long as I can pay some money, I do not have to to really do much to get all the details in place. So the documentation is hard. It's hard to track their taxes. It's hard to track who's actually paying for these taxes, or are you just paying off someone?
Or some are even evading them.
They're invading the taxes. So it doesn't benefit, it actually takes away from the economy. But we're going to continue this conversation on the economic trends in Africa, specifically Uganda, and dovetailing over all the other countries. But right now we're going to take a short break and come back for the press review. back for the press review. We have some interesting topics over here. Enid will be taking us through the Daily Monitor, and I'll be taking you through the New Vision. So we see here in the first page, oil project, 1,700 jobs up for grabs. So for all those that are looking for work, I think you should get onto this, because recruitment for Tilenga operation starts next month, officials say. And of course, we're seeing Chambogo University holds their 19th graduation. So it's timely that they posted this, looking for jobs and there's graduation. So don't say they didn't warn you.
Yeah, sure.
What's happening in the Daily Monitor?
How to plot to overthrow a government was uncovered. Then Chambogo graduates, over 10,000 students.
Wow.
10,000 students.
And
you just
and
said
the jobs are 1,700 jobs.
So we can see the
And already we already know part of those 1,700 jobs, like 700 already given internally.
Exactly.
Right? Or they're just putting this for formality to say like, hey, we put out jobs, but only a few of you qualify. So out of those 10,000, you have to be more proactive in trying to get that job. So we're also seeing here UNRWA to regulate traffic flow at Busega as repair works begin. So we see here that all the necessary traffic safety infrastructure has been installed at Busega along to ensure continued but regulated traffic flow. The Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRWA, has said. You can check that out, right? Because we definitely need to be able to regulate this traffic flow, especially the bad roads that we have. What else is happening?
And then here we have Uganda gets shillings 1.5 trillion green investment deals at COP28. This is a good thing. They're saying COP28 is being held with focus on urging firms to prioritize climate financing in countries that have suffered the negative consequences of climate change.
Well, so interesting, and I hope no one is affected by this, but we see 4 million city dwellers to be affected as National Water and Sewage Corporation shuts down plants.
Cool.
So we see here over 4 million people in Kampala city and its surrounding areas will today, Thursday, be affected as their taps will be rendered dry to allow routine maintenance of the water treatment plants at Gaba. According to the National Water and Sewage Corporation Management, the shutdown of the 2 treatment plants will affect the water supply in Kampala for 12 hours. So if I were you guys, I would stock up, get your jerry cans of water, and get those big basins and put the water as you wait. What else is happening?
Then here we have government remains firm over anti-gay law. Then Speaker raises red flag on Kampala floods. Then stop nepotism in public service, says Nachobe.
Interesting, Nachobe, and yes, I believe her son will be getting married on Saturday. I will be attending that wedding.
Really?
Nachobe. So Nachobe, as I was about to read, once incompetent public servants dismissed. That's interesting. So we also see here pressure piles on Bobi Wine to apologize over his gay comments. That is in the national news. You can check out that story. And then we see here over 1,700 jobs expected in Telenga oil project starting next month. So we see here at least 1,782 employees will be recruited in the Telenga project oil field starting next month. Officials have announced the employees required will be skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled labor. So it's a mix of different facets, right? So at the same time, various goods and services will be required for the Tilenga project. The project comprises of oil production, a crude oil processing plant, underground pipelines, and infrastructure in Bulisa and Nuoya district. So kindly check that out, especially for all the Chambogo graduates that are rushing. Please find out if you are qualified for these positions.
Then here we have Mwanjari Business Center boosts Kabale's economy. So here they say Mr. Alex Beingana, the principal assistant town clerk for Southern Division, also revealed that other investment opportunities in his division include establishing rentals to accommodate the increasing businesses in the area, establishments of hotels and restaurants to provide food and soft drinks for the people in the area, also tapping into the Kazigizi industrial area where a matchbox and plastic making factories have been established.
Interesting.
It's a good thing for the Kabale.
Yes. So we see here that Japanese embassy commits to fighting HIV and AIDS. So we see here the Japanese embassy in Uganda has committed to supporting all efforts geared towards ending HIV/AIDS, in addition to supporting the children orphaned by the virus. Tomotaka Yoshimura, the deputy head of mission of the Japanese embassy in Uganda, made the commitment during the celebration of Comrade World AIDS Day at Ashinaga, Uganda in Nansana, well, Okay, so district on Friday. So that's a really good initiative by the Japanese government.
And then here we also have expenditure on public debt increases to shillings 3.7 trillion. And we just talked about debt and loans on Monday. Now we can see there is an increase in the public debt to 3.7 trillion. And here they say 9.5% maintained. Bank of Uganda has maintained the central bank rate at 9.5% for the second month in the row.
Oh, interesting, right? And we see here why mining sector has depreciated over the last 100 years. That article is in here. So minerals in Uganda, according to the Energy Ministry, Uganda's mineral potential includes metallic mineral resources, industrial minerals, gemstones, and precious metals. So right now, we're going to get into the traffic update with Andrew Barije. Yes, Andrew Barije, good morning. Kindly tell us what is happening on the roads this morning.
Very much, Mercy. Godwin, and in it, and definitely Andrew Barije coming live here at the Fairway Traffic Lights to give you the latest, that is the traffic update at this very hour. Well, according to my entire observation, ever since I arrived into this area, it's quite a little bit free. There is no congestion, so any person that is likely to head to this area, well, you will reach in time on your required destination. Now, of course, taking a look down in there, if I may observe the John Babiha route, of course, which connects way down all that street, way up to Kandicha Street, and even links up to that is Acacia Mall and Kamocha roundabout around that side. You can see it's quite very free, and I know that route for sure that it has quite a lot of traffic lights on the way. Of course, quite a number of stopovers if you're coming. But according to this overall observation, and I can see the traffic lights to some degree have control when it comes to determining the traffic. So in just a few minutes, if you're leaving Kamocha and you're planning to use this route, the John Babiha route, I can actually urge you to use it. Go ahead and use it. You will actually reach very safe. Of course, same applies to those people that are coming in from Tinda, Bukoto, Kira Road areas. Around those areas, you can actually link up in here and you'll be in position to reach in the required time as you ought to. Quite free movement of the vehicles. Like I told you earlier, there is not really much control of the vehicles by the traffic officers, as you can really observe. Well, it's a Thursday probably. That could kind of explain. There is a little bit of relaxation of the tension. Most especially in the morning hours, and definitely the fact that we're heading towards the weekend, that can entirely explain why we're observing what we're observing at this particular point in time. Well, now if we take a look at the Yusufullah Road itself, of course, which connects all the way from Nile Avenue linking up to Garden City, and definitely it proceeds all the way up to the Mulago roundabout, and of course into other areas like the Bombo Road where they can link up to Kampala Road. It's also quite small, so if you're coming in from Chibuli, of course probably the only disruptions could be at the construction that is happening around the access road. Might delay you a little bit, but once you skip all that and you come through Garden City, Yusufullah Road, and you're heading to Wandega, you're heading to Mulago, you're heading to areas towards Bombo Road, you probably could be even heading to Matuga. It's going to be okay for you, and it's not going to be quite a lot of time that you're going to spend. You know, unlike on other casual days when it's quite a little bit congested, when you can actually consider that you will spend about 7 to 10 minutes. But now, even in the space of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, if you're coming in from Chibuli, linking up straight in here, you can drive up to the required destination. And same applies to the vehicles that are coming in from, of course, Yusufullah Road, coming in all the way from the Mulago side, the roundabout, definitely majority where they have linked up. Some are even coming in from Wandega, dissecting straight to the city center, or even other given destinations. Well, it's quite okay. It's very free. Unlike probably the only issue could be around the Mulago roundabout itself, coming in, crossing all the way, the fact that we're seeing only one vehicle at a time leaving. So if you're a resident of Wandega, Mulago side, you actually could be even coming in from Nakulabie, you could be even coming in from Kasubi, and you're planning to come probably, you're crossing over to Nakawa. This would be quite a good route for you. You'll come link up to the Wandega traffic lights, branch over to the Mulago roundabout, then you will come straight here and branch off to the Ginger Road traffic lights, that junction where Ginger Road and Kampala Road intersect, where they meet, and you can proceed effectively. So that is the situation. Now, finally, let's take a look at Kafu Road here. Of course, heading towards the Golden Tulip Hotel route. Of course, this is also quite very important for those that make shortcuts. If you don't want to get into the Blaga roundabout traffic jam, you can actually use this route, and it will drop you exactly close to the Wandega traffic lights. And in case you're heading towards Makere, this would be the right approach for you. And the chances are high that chances are 8% high that most of the vehicles that are actually using it right now, they're trying to avoid the possible predicted congestion that might happen. That normally happens, actually, that is around the Black roundabout. So that clearly puts out a picture of how you can try to beat up time in such morning hours. Of course, here it might feel like it's free, like the vehicles are moving free, but of course you could reach just one spot right there, and it could doom your entire journey. So it's way much more better. You think about alternatives. So the Kafu Road is actually absolutely perfect. Now I'm gonna wind this up as we take a look at the Seziwa route, this one which links you straight to Nakasero, and of course drop you to the city center. If you're heading in there, probably you could be coming in from Wandega, and you're heading to the city center. You could just come actually from the Yusuf Fule Road. As you're going to see a few vehicles that are coming in there, branch off in here. You link up to Nakasero, and you'll be in position to reach the city center in the required time possible. Yes, a few border people in here, and same applies to the pedestrians. Not so many as compared to other given destinations. So it's free. Even those that are coming in from city center can use the Seziwa route, and you'll be in position probably to go through. You're heading to Wandega, perfect. You will reach in time. Well, that is it for all the traffic updates at this particular hour. Of course, I've been Andrew Barige, coming in live here at the Fairway traffic lights. Of course, giving you the updates, and my overall observation is that there is no congestion. It's quite free. Probably it might resume in the later hours of the day shortly, because it's quite a little bit delicate. That could happen in case you don't take caution. Well, at this point in time, let me take you back to plot 42, Nile Avenue. That is with the Godwin and in it.
All right, welcome back from the traffic update. Thank you so much, Andrew Barije. We can see that a lot is happening on the roads this morning. They seem relatively clear. People are moving this morning, but yes, definitely going. Thank you so much for that. We're going to take a short break and come back for Karibu East Africa.